And yeah, so who am I? I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, which is in North Staffordshire. I live in a place called Newcastle-under-Lyme with my wife and daughter, which is just next to Stoke-on-Trent. I've got a PhD in particle physics, which was from the University of Manchester in collaboration with the Cockroach Institute in Warrington and CERN. I'm employed by a company called Tufted Nuclear Technologies, so I'm actually a nuclear physicist now. And in my free time, I'm a volunteer and trustee at the AAJRL Valley Light Railway, which is a narrow gauge railway about a mile from where I live.
He's a train spotter.
Yeah. And the reason for the picture was I was invited to Downing Street to represent the area as the community champion for the work that I put into closing Wally's Quarry.
Very good.
Thank you. And how did it all begin? Well, I was a lover of all things pretty much anti-environment. I loved Brunel, steam trains, cars, burning stuff, things like that. And so I'm not really the person you would have expected to be an environmental campaigner. But we had this problem with a smell in our local area. And at first I thought it was an underground spoil heap fire because there was an old spoil heap that had been burning for several years. But I was told it was coming from this landfill site, and residents were asked to report on the 0800 7060 number when there were odour incidents. So I saw it as my civic duty to do just that. And in February 2020, I was sent a summary report of an air quality report that was sent to those residents that had registered an interest. And I read it and thought, it's a bit crap this is. It was very dismissive. It was speaking down to the residents. It was very authoritative and didn't actually have that much detail. And me being me, as I was calling in one of my complaints, I was like, about this report, it's a bit rubbish. Can I have a word with someone about it? And a month later, I was dragged into a teleconference with the installation's technical lead at the Environment Agency and the air quality lead, and they actually gave me a copy of the full report. The full report was good. And, I had no problem with the full report, but what had been communicated to the residents was not fit for purpose. And I felt that they were taking advantage of the fact that the area in particular is a bit socioeconomically deprived, and so they were sort of using technical speak to try and bamboozle the people. And yeah, that's where it all began. That's where I stuck my oar in, and they all got very stuck, and ever since then. Wally's Quarry, it's internationally infamous. It's been reported as far as Australia, and it originally was a clay quarry for bricks and tiles. Staffordshire, well known for our pottery industry, we also make a lot of bricks and tiles as well. An application for it to become a landfill site was submitted in 1992, and after loads of local opposition to this, it was overturned by the Secretary of the State at the time in 1997, and this set things in motion for us to have a landfill site in North Staffordshire. And the first landfilling permit was issued in June 2005, and this was specifically for non-hazardous waste. There was a clause in the planning permission that said it was supposed to be just inert waste, but that expired before a permit was even given, so we were stuck with this landfill site. Now, the operator, Wally's Quarry Limited, founded by a gentleman, I use that word loosely, called Adam Sher, who was from Lincolnshire. And it's a little bit of a checkered history Adam has. Before he founded this company, he was put in jail for 3 months for hacking the computers of the Environment Agency and the phone lines of the residents that were reporting its landfill site. So, yes, not a great start for a business, really. And the landfill side of the business was at the time known as Red Industries RM Limited, but because of a lot of negative publicity from some very committed campaigners, they actually changed the name to Wally's Quarry Limited to try to mitigate the damage to the rest of their business. And if you go into the trouble down the pit thing, we had the same problem as you have here: hydrogen sulfide. And we found that this was above. This was definitely above the oak threshold. We could smell it. And but this site, Wallace Quarry, actually received more complaints than everything else the Environment Agency had reported in 2021. Very serious. It was the first landfill site ever to breach the World Health Organization short-term health guidelines, the first to breach the medium-term tolerability guidelines, and the first to breach the long-term, the chronic-term health guidelines. And I did this calculation a while ago, and it's mathematically certain to be breaching the chronic limit until January 2027. In fact, it'll be even worse than that, because even if, now that the emissions have stopped, it's that cumulative impact that's on health. That's it. So what did we do? We took some indirect protest action. We had some really big protests. There was one that media reported there's up to 1,000 people outside the gates of the landfill site. Not all at the same time, but in a bit of a rotation. We protested at the landfill, in the town centre where the council offices are, and we also, conveniently, their head office was in the middle of town, so we made some noise there, and apparently they couldn't do any work because it was too disruptive.
Oh, what?
I know, it was a shame. And as well as just protests and marches, we also organised a Fight for Fresh Air event in the park in town. You know, we had things like we had children write on carved teddy bears, what impact this had on their life, and hang it on a little tree that we've had, and we presented that to the council at the time. So, look, this
We're
is.
lucky we've got one primary school that's on our side.
I went past Fleet today. They've got your banner on as well. And then, but what was happening is this indirect protest action, particularly with the inaction of the Environment Agency, we felt that it was effectively cheerleading. We're just waving our banners, not having an impact. So, in 2021, one of our protesters, Nathan Wynn, absolutely at his wit's end because his children couldn't sleep because of landfill gas in their bedrooms at the time. He chained himself to the gates and locked them closed. He got arrested for the privilege, but
That's what Jess wants me to do. As long as you come bail me out.
And well, no one has ever been convicted for the process action at
I don't like
Wallace
police
Quarry.
stations anymore.
But other protests involved blocking the gates. As far as we saw it, the Environment Agency weren't doing anything to stop this operator, so we're going to have to do it ourselves. And in 2022, we had a protester, Simo Sticky Burgess, who actually both chained and glued his hands through the gates to stop access to the site, and they needed a special police ungluing unit to come and to come and. It was funny though, because he did need the toilet not long after doing it. But the key to successful process action is to keep the media on board. Keep looking for those stories that you can tell. For instance, I was trawling through Wallace Quarry's court documents recently, and I found that they potentially owed HMRC £80.1 million.
It's just that translate, it's got to get all over the place.
We're in a cost of living crisis, and we're letting folks like that potentially get away with deals like that. And I just fed that to my reporters, and they made a story out of it, and they're happy. Just
keep doing it.
Keep feeding the media. They are your friends in this. They will get things done. Including, I don't bother complaining about the Environment Agency anymore. I just call up. Don't do something I want. Call up the media, and I get what I want eventually. Yeah. And yes, in December 2021, the Environment Agency announced.
We pay them.
We're paying their wages.
In 23rd December 2021, the Environment Agency announced that they were investigating alleged illegal waste activity at Red Industries sites, and so we had a landfill source where convicted criminal. You can see where this was probably going. And also in 6th of September 2022, the Environment Agency they announced they were doing an investigation a regulatory investigation into permit breaches. Again, a criminal investigation into Wallace Quarry Limited. And we were trying to get a story published in The Guardian at the time about these these are allegations of illegal waste activity. But the lawyers at Guardian were just too risk averse and wouldn't publish the story. And so our MP at the time, Aaron Bell, he actually decided to use parliamentary privilege to read this out. And the accusations included hazardous waste, including arsenic, rat poison, and zinc, which was alleged to have been tipped at the landfill. Also, cavity wax, which is very harmful to lungs. That was alleged to have been dumped at the landfill. This is stuff that's supposed to be sent off to Holland for sort of pyrolytic destruction. And we were up against this. We had the UK Health Security Agency saying there's nothing to see here. We had the Environment Agency saying, there's nothing to see here. But we were really blessed that we got in contact with Professor Ian Sinner of Alder Hey Children's Hospital, who's a respiratory paediatrician, and he actually, he produced a report about the impact that this landfill was having on the health of people of a young boy in the area, 5-year-old Matthew Richards, and this was absolute gold. This was it. We actually took this to the High Court with us, and we won. We actually got judicial review action, and at the High Court, we compelled the Environment Agency to do their job and reduce hydrogen sulfide emissions to up to 2 micrograms per metre cubed.
So that's what we've got to do basically, is get to that point.
You've got to get, yeah. We were fortunate as well that we had a Queen's Counsel barrister at the time who was from Newcastle under Lyme. So he sort of took the case forward and helped us out, managed to sort out legal aid for the claimant and things like that. And so that's how we're able to take it forward. So sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. But what was absolutely appalling is the Environment Agency, rather than taking Wally's Quarry to task, they decided to appeal against a poorly 5-year-old boy. And they were successful. We had proven that this was causing harm to Matthew. That in terms of the science, our scientists had the better of the Environment Agency, but they allowed the case to get dragged into the legality of what the regulator should do, what the courts should do, things like that, and so eventually the crux of it was that the courts were saying, oh yes, it's shortening that young lad's life, it's causing harm to him, but it's not the court's job to do anything about it, it's the regulator. They were just utterly appalled by this. But it wasn't just the Environment Agency. We had the Newcastle Borough Council. They actually served what's called a statutory nuisance abatement notice.
We've had them.
We haven't.
In August.
What was the one we got?
No, that was just Trans Ways got an enforcement
Right.
notice.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and this, of course, as these folk do, they never think they're in the wrong. Wally's Quarry Limited appealed this notice, but the crucial thing about this is, through mediation in September 2022, Wally's Quarry Limited actually admitted to being the source of odour as part of the settlement agreement, and that's very important because before then they were commissioning sort of expert reports saying, oh, it's not us, it's the sewers, or it's the mines, or something like that. And
Same, exactly the same.
And it cost them £460,000 that they had to pay to the council. Unfortunately, this was done on a sort of payment plan, and Wally's Quarry Limited went out of business, still owing hundreds of thousands of pounds. And this is quite a rare action. The last time that a council served an abatement notice was 1990. So it was over 30 years ago this has ever been done. So that's how bad it was. And Wally's Quarry was recognised as the worst industrial operator for pollution in 2021, 2022 and 2023. But what was interesting when I looked through the figures is they were the top all these 3 years in a row and no prosecutions yet. Yet Dairy Crest, who admittedly were putting milk in, sort of spent milk in the river, were fined £1.5 million for, and they were only sort of 9th on the list, the worst. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, and this went all the way up. We had the DEFRA's chief scientific advisor actually produced a report on Wally's Quarry. It was that bad that we needed to understand what was going wrong, how to fix it, and what can be done to prevent this happening in other places, as unfortunately it is happening to you folk. And the other thing to be aware of is something called lawfare, otherwise known as strategic litigation against public participation. This is where you have a big, rich company with some very trigger-happy lawyers, and they will just come at you. You know, we had Red Industries threatened our MP, the leader of the council, a county councillor, environmental reporters, the whistleblower, Twitter. That made me laugh. They tried to sue Twitter, which was interesting. And we had a comedian, Lucy Beaumont, who was sort of promoting our campaign, and they even tried to sue her. They sent her a threatening letter. And on the 21st of April, 2022, the day that I remember only too well, Wally's Quarry Limited served legal papers against key local campaigners, including myself, threatening to sue, including for losses which they were claiming was going to be sort of running into the hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of pounds. Now, I'm going to talk very candidly now about what the impact had on this, what this impact had on me. So I am going to talk about sort of like the mental health impact of this and the suicidal thoughts that I had at the time. And on receiving this injunction and realising I had potential to be sued for about hundreds of thousands of pounds, which is lose your house territory, I felt like an utter failure to my family, endangering the roof over their head, just for trying to do the right thing, trying to stand up for my community. And unfortunately, I went to a dark place then. Realised that financially, at least, I was worth more dead. I had a very good, I've still got a very good life insurance policy with work. And I was thinking, well, with me gone, this claim against me dies with me, and my wife and daughter will be safe from it then. And over the weekend of 23rd and 24th of April, I wasn't myself. This was just playing through my head over and over. And on the morning of the 25th of April, I had vivid visions of hanging myself from one of the trees next at the gate of the landfill site with a t-shirt with the words scrawled, "Red Industries did this to me." Because I thought, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to make sure everyone knows why. And I just woke up crying, couldn't console myself. And I woke my wife up and I said, look, I need some help. I've had a mental breakdown. And yeah, this is the impact that these campaigns can have on people. So, do look after each other. However, there was a little bit of a silver lining in all this. Wally's Quarry was such a bad landfill that there was a dedicated mental health counsellor that being provided by the Midlands Foundation Partnership Trust just for Wally's Quarry related mental health issues. So I knew who to call, and so I called them up and sought some help. Also, I was actually on secondment to another company at the time, and I just had at work this was, and I just talked to my colleagues there and said, I'm going to have to hand the work over to someone else because this has happened. And they were brilliant. Within an hour or two, I had a mental health first aid session on Teams, and someone just coming to dig me out of this hole that I was in. And also contacted colleagues where I worked, and the support was amazing actually. This wall of protection that people formed around me for this, it saved me.
Do you think that you'll win?
So,
do you think you're willing to get it closed down permanently, or have you already won?
No, you already have.
We'll save it for the end. So, yeah, once I sort of picked myself up off the floor, we had to have a think about how to fight this injunction. We're dealing with a company who will chuck millions at this problem to try and silence those that are campaigning just for clean air. We had a little bit of good fortune in that one of our campaigners saved the life of someone who was drowning on holiday, and so she ended up on front page, all got publicity for us. But also, that same person, Lisa Burdett Walford, she said that I should arrange to start fundraising for the legal campaign because people trusted me with money for some reason. So yeah, we actually got 12 grand from the local community to help us to fight this. Now we couldn't. 12 grand. It sounds like a lot of money, but
any legal fees?
to quash this injunction, you're starting at £100,000.
Just 24
But
hours away, that's all.
it did buy enough advice to get the costs order struck off the injunction. So all we had to do was say, I promise that I will not go and block the gates of the landfill, which I'd only done them once anyway, so it was a bit silly that they were doing this. And so that was the real. That was one of the real sort of stresses lifted from us, because those of us that had houses and things knew we were safe then. And there was a bit of money left over, and Wally's probably put a leaflet through everyone's door saying what a wonderful job they were doing. And so, with the money left over, we had 20,000 leaflets printed with a sort of counter. All the counter arguments and all the properly evidenced and everything, so what the thing we could say about it. And with volunteer effort, we delivered that around Newcastle on the line. It was quite the undertaking, and it was a proper up yours back to Wally's Quarry. And after this, I sort of focused on myself and my own recovery a bit. I had a mental health session on the NHS in July 2022. I'd actually come to the conclusion that they'd been neglecting my mental health for several months. I was gradually burning myself down. It was actually this traumatic event that made me realise, oh, yeah, that's where I've been messing up here. I kind of concluded that I didn't need any further treatment because I'd stepped back from my campaign. But I used to have a compulsive condition where I'd pluck at eyebrows and my eyelashes and things. So I decided, well, since I'm in the care of mental health professionals, I may as well sort that out. And I've been able to grow a beard since, that worked. mainly to compensate for the lack of hair as a result of this campaign. And I'm not fixed yet. There's still some residual effects, but I think to some degree caused by the lockdowns and things like that during COVID and things. But occasionally I sort of, because I fear that I'd made a bad judgment, I'd put my wife and daughter at risk. I sometimes don't trust my judgments, in my work and things like that, and it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's pretty nasty. And I sort of count these as aftershocks. These are, from that traumatic event. But I'm managing. When this is all kicking off, Lee Day, the big litigation lawyers, they sort of said, oh, actually, we're gonna support you, and we're going to take this on as a group litigation case. I understand, is it Hugh James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want their for change. I just
Yeah,
want the case closed.
We actually had a bit of a bad experience with Hugh James because they dealt a claim with previous operator of the landfill, and we approached them and said, well, you're going to take on a claim against this new operator that's even worse, and they said, oh no, old claimants only. So a bit strange that was.
Then why did they start sending us all messages and saying, oh,
No, that was on their campaign, not
yeah, but
this
if
one.
they're going to do the same thing, go on.
Yeah, we just found that a little bit odd. So yeah, the big group litigation claim was with Lee Day for Wally's Quarry. But the icing on the cake for me of this campaign was when we got on BBC Panorama.
Yeah.
Yes.
Landfill, Britain's toxic secret. Now this was fantastic because I have been helping the producers to get this over the line, providing with all the evidence and everything to make sure that BBC's lawyers were satisfied this could be aired without repercussions from Red Industries. And one of the conditions that Red Industries said was, you're not to use our name on this because it's Wally's Quarry Limited. they pulled an absolute blinder on this programme when showing the emails of this alleged illegal waste activity. They were all letterheaded with the Red Industries logo, and I was just like, yes! Absolutely, it was absolutely fantastic. And there's a QR code, and there's enough for everyone to take one home. Scan that with your smartphone, and you can watch that episode, and you'll find it very educational for your campaign. And then things started to make a turn for the better. I'd been badgering the UK Health Security Agency for quite a while to start to acknowledge that this was a long-term, chronic problem. We had the expert testimony of Professor Ian Sinner. You need to be taking this a bit more seriously. And they did. They started changing their health impact reports to say, you've all got a copy, you can read the quote there, but they were basically saying that, you need to take all measures to deal with this. And that sort of slight change in the language, that kind of put the pressure on the Environment Agency to do more. And then we had a breakthrough. This was back in the 1st of March last year, this was, and the Environment Agency served a suspension notice. And we thought, this is great, that they can stop waste imports. Also, it's a step in the dance you have to take before you go to a closure notice. Because if you jump straight from an enforcement notice to a closure notice, the operator then has the right to say, we've not followed due process. So this was, as far as we see, this was the step in the dance that we needed.
It's the boring bits we have to do.
Yeah. And the Environment Agency finally admitted what we're all telling them. This operator was not working towards compliance. Their non-compliance score was getting worse year on year. And so we thought, oh, this is good. But just 11 days after the suspension notice was issued, it was withdrawn. And the Environment Agency said this was because they complied with all the steps. In fact, what actually happened was that what was said through their third party, through a third party sort of assessors, oh, this has all been done, and so the suspension notice was lifted. And by this time, Wallace Quarry had already written to the Secretary of State to try and appeal the original notice. And there was concern in the community here that they were getting away with it, and that the health of residents was being completely discarded. However, something else happened that was quite handy. Is a change in government. Now, I'm politically agnostic. I've worked well with our Conservative MP. I've worked well with our Labour MP at the moment. But what was crucial here is our Conservative MP was very, very helpful, but he was lumbered with a party where this had happened on their watch. Their Waste Minister at the time, Rebecca Powell, to do something about this would have been to admit the past failures. And so it wasn't actually going to get sorted with the same government. And so as soon as we changed government, Adam Jogi, who's our new MP, he had engaged very early with the Stop the Stink campaign, but he also had experience in waste regulation because he'd worked under the Shadow Waste Minister Ruth Jones at the time. And put your fingers in your ears, sorry. The key to a good campaign is be politically agnostic. Make them work for you. It's
I've got a big up the rain feeders on that one.
But then, after that, we had the taste of victory. 28th of November 2024, I got a call from Adam Jogi as I was boarding a plane back from CERN, and he says, Mick, it's Christmas Day. He wasn't allowed to say anymore, but I knew exactly what he meant. And yes, the Environment Agency had served a closure notice against Wallace Quarry. The community was still very cautious. They've been used to this before, where something gets overturned or appealed, and sure enough, Wallace Quarry did lodge an appeal. But when you serve a closure notice, you're not allowed to accept waste even while it's under appeal. However, Wallace Quarry tried to go to the courts to get an injunction to overturn that ban until the appeal was heard, but it was denied.
Yes.
And this, I think, was the fatal, they knew that was the fatal blow, because the court said, you haven't got a leg to stand on. They knew that appeal, the same arguments would meant that they would fail. And on 27th February 2025, so this year, Wallace Quarry Limited was defeated, and they entered insolvency. And the Environment Agency confirmed that the appeal effectively died with the company, so there was no chance of someone else taking on the permit and reopening it. And actually, the liquidators disclaimed the permit, so there isn't a permit for someone to claim anyway. So this is it. Waste inputs are finished, and now the community could be confident that no new waste would be accepted. However, there's still the landfill that isn't quite finished yet. So the aftermath is, with the permit disclaimed, the liquidators also disclaimed the land because it would cost them more to put it right than the land was worth. So the owner of Wallace Quarry is actually King Charles III, because it's escheat, I think is the word, when someone disclaimed. Yeah. King Charles III is the owner of Wallace Quarry landfill. And the Environment Agency have discretionary powers.
That's the greenest royal we've ever had.
Yeah, that was just thrown upon him. Now.
Yeah.
He didn't ask for it.
Well, the Environment Agency have used discretionary powers to manage the site so far to remove the risk of serious pollution. And when landfill operators have a landfill, they have to submit a bond of a certain amount of money to cover. It's supposed to cover remediation, but it doesn't tend to be close. And there was 2.2 million that Wallace Quarry had put in this bond, and that should be good for a couple of years of maintaining the site. And they've used third-party contracts to manage the site, so Jackson Civils, and they've been doing a brilliant job. I mean, week on week, it's actually quite boring because it's like 0% above the over threshold, 2 complaints or something like that. So. Yeah. And this is dropping from weeks where we had thousands of complaints.
Yes, we have exactly the same.
And the improvements in reducing pollution from this landfill site will positively affect the health and well-being of thousands in the Newcastle underlying area. And okay, so job done, right? No, not quite. Sorry. It's still unclear how the rest of the site will be remediated. Although I did find out when I was looking through that court document. For when they were trying to appeal against the closure notice, that their gas management plant was earning 70 grand a month. And so if the Environment Agency can get their hands on that money, well, that will pay to run the site. So that's where I'm hoping that's going to the A, not to Red Industries. So you never know with these things. There's some fresh judicial review action being taken against the A for kind of letting this happen and ensuring that they take responsibility going forward. And we've still got criminal investigations into alleged illegal waste activities at Red Industries sites that are still open, and I communicate with the crime team on a reasonably regular basis, so I'm content that that's still progressing. And one unfortunate thing is, with Wallace Quarry liquidated, the only avenue for compensation is now via the public liability insurance. However, we've got public liability insurance that was obtained by a convicted criminal. Can we trust that everything was declared correctly? Probably not. So, Leeds are currently looking into that validity. And according to the planning permission for the site, it should be remediated to become country park. Members of the community now are in talks with a drama or documentary producer. It's looking like that the film is going to be the media outlet for this. And we've also got an Oscar-winning writer on the books as well. We continue engagement with government. We still want to see a clean air bill to make it easier to deal with problems like this in the future. And I need to finish the book I'm writing. I'm writing a book called The Silverdale Spartacus. And it says a third complete, but I had a good bit of writing, so I'm just under halfway now with that, and I'm hoping to get it published. It's very, very cathartic. And so that's the Wallace Quarry story. And I want to bring it back to you people here in Fleetwood. I obtained some data by Dr. Barbara Neal, and she actually found out the compliance scores for for Jameson Road landfill. And the worst year for Wally's Quarry was a compliance score of 251.1. Jameson Road, 2024, 511. That is enough for them to be in Band F, which are the worst possible band, 3 times over. It's twice as non-compliant as the worst of Wally's Quarry. And they have the audacity to say things that are getting better. That is much mismanagement. It's even staggered me, and I thought I'd dealt with the worst of the worst. And they're on 126 this year so far, so yeah, probably doing better, but still, they'll probably end up in Band F again this year. And so yeah, something is seriously wrong with the management of that landfill site, and that's why I'm here. I haven't been to visit any other landfill campaigns. I've come here because I saw those numbers and thought, what the hell is going on here?
Our story as a town, listening to what you said, has gone through every single thing that you've gone through until the panorama. We've had closure notices put on them at the year of overturn them. Is it one monitoring we've got?
One.
Yeah. And it's near the gates of there.
Sounds yard.
I went past it on the tram today.
It was where a few of us live who were literally 0.5 of a mile from there. I can see it from my bedroom window. If we had one on the estate where we live, this would be a lot higher. It's terrible. I've been woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's gone on until 2, 3 o'clock the next morning. The smell has got worse as the day and night has gone on.
Yeah, it's the furthest mobile monitoring facility from Wallis was within a kilometre. Yours, I